Take.
This is Stephen, the Disney Drago Robinson. You're watching the one and only Sporting Icon. Bow!
Okay, so the man of the moment, and rightfully so, the juggernaut, Joe Joyce, fresh on a knockout victory over Joseph Parker, has said that if the Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua fight falls apart, he's quite willing to step in and take on either guy. Tyson Fury has already responded by saying he's not going to fight Joe Joyce next, even though he's the number 2 heavyweight in the world. Joe Joyce isn't ready for that kind of fight, and Joe Joyce needs to build himself up a little bit more to get that kind of fight. Basically, he ducked him. Because if you're calling him the second best heavyweight in the world and then saying he's not ready, it's a duck, right? Maybe he didn't like what he saw against Joseph Parker. He's a bit nervous himself, maybe. But Joe Joyce said December the 3rd is a little bit too tight for him anyway, but December the 17th, he'll be available to take on Anthony Joshua. Now, Joe Joyce, Anthony Joshua, these guys have known each other for many, many years. Of course, they're part of the Team GB. They've sparred each other hundreds and hundreds of rounds as amateurs and as pros in that as well. I'm led to believe that these guys are actually pretty close at one point. Quite what happened to make Joe Joyce turn on him, I don't know. Maybe it's just business. Maybe that's all it is, with some of the things he's been saying about Joshua. But either way, as far as the fight's concerned, now again, some people may say, well, why can't you just fight on December the 3rd? What's the difference between December the 3rd, December the 17th? It's only 2 weeks. Well, you have to remember, a lot of people weren't holding that same energy when Joshua said to Fury, I'd prefer to fight you on December the 17th. Because it gives me that little bit more time. But then people say, it's only 2 weeks, he's trying to duck Tyson Fury, etc., etc. Listen, 2 weeks is important. It is very, very important to a fighter's camp. It is. But that said, December 17th, the Principality Stadium, Cardiff, Wales, the Millennium Stadium. Would you watch it? You're damn right you'd watch Anthony Joshua versus Joe Joyce. Of course you would. And if Anthony Joshua wants to get straight back into title contention, Joe Joyce holds one of the keys. There's 3 keys available right now. Joe Joyce holds it with the WBO, Filip Hrgović holds it with the IBF, and Daniel Dubois holds it with the WBA. So one of those 3 will allow Joshua straight back into world title contention again. Okay, so a Joe Joyce fight. Now, most boxing fans would favour Joe Joyce right now, I imagine, basically because you look at recent history. Okay, Joyce looked phenomenal. He looked great against Joseph Parker and, of course, become the first person to knock him out. Anthony Joshua, while he did look good against Alexander Usyk at times in their rematch, ultimately he lost. So that's how people will balance it out. But stylistically, you have to look at it as well. Anthony Joshua, and I've been saying this for the past couple of years now, Joshua seems to struggle with shorter fighters. In all of the fights that he's had against shorter fighters, with the exception of an Eric Molina or an Andy Ruiz Jr. rematch, Joshua has struggled with shorter fighters. Andy Ruiz, the first fight. Carlos Takam, he was struggling at times. Alexander Povetkin, he was struggling at times. Okay, so he does struggle against shorter guys. Taller guys, he knocks them out. Every single one of them knocked him out. Vladimir Klitschko, Dominic Brazil, Charles Martin, and so forth, okay? And Joe Joyce fits into the tall man category. He's the same height as Anthony Joshua, pretty much the same kind of weight, although Joe Joyce is a bit heavier than him. He's not as athletic, if you like, as Joshua in the boxing ring, even though Joe Joyce is quite clearly athletic, with him doing like his backflips and all kinds of gymnastics after the fights and everything. But inside the ring, he's very George Foreman-ish. He's like Michael Myers. He will just walk you down and just club you to death. Okay, that's what Joe Joyce does. But Anthony Joshua, he likes those kind of fighters. He does. And when you look back on the history of Joe Joyce and Anthony Joshua, of course, they've been friends for quite some time, or at least we were led to believe that they were. They fought in the amateurs as well. Anthony Joshua stopped Joe Joyce in the first round after the referee gave Joe Joyce a 3rd count. So Joshua actually holds a knockout victory over Joe Joyce. But you see, a lot of people will put down the chin of Joe Joyce. There's way too much emphasis on how good Joe Joyce's chin is. It shouldn't even be a factor, really, because chins don't win fights. They just stop you from getting knocked out, really. But no chin is unbreakable. Anthony Joshua would be the biggest puncher that Joe Joyce has faced. Joe Joyce is very upright, and he's there to get hit, and he does get hit. If Anthony Joshua lands on Joe Joyce, which I fully expect him to do so on quite a few occasions, he's going to hurt Joe Joyce. Don't be surprised if Joe Joyce gets knocked out. how is Anthony Joshua going to take the pure pressure of Joe Joyce, who's going to keep on marching forward? And Joe Joyce will take a lot of those shots, especially in the early rounds. He will take those shots. Is Joshua just going to fold? Is Joyce just going to get to him and stop him? Very possibly. So again, when you look at this fight, I can see scenarios of either one winning on points, and I can also see a more likely outcome, one of them two going to get knocked out. They can knock each other out, no doubt. It's a very, very interesting fight. But again, when you talk about Joe Joyce, you have to factor in all the other opponents. Okay, so Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, Dillian White, Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz Jr., Arslanbek Makhmudov, and so forth and so forth. Joe Joyce can beat all of them. He can. But likewise, they all can beat Joe Joyce. So Joe Joyce is in that mix. And he's really announced himself with that performance over Joseph Parker. I do feel the tactics were wrong for Joseph Parker. Quite why Andy Lee was trying to get him to fight like a big man is beyond me. I don't know why he'd done that. I think Andy Lee, I think he's exposed his boxing training credentials, to be honest with you, with those tactics. But that said, it's a very, very good performance by Joe Joyce. Now, it's a fight that I would love to see. You would love to see it. We would fill out the stadium. We would watch it on pay-per-view, all that kind of stuff, as we would if Tyson Fury fought Joe Joyce. But I don't know why Tyson Fury doesn't fancy that fight right now. I really don't know. Why is he looking at Emmanuel Charr instead of a Joe Joyce? It's beyond me. But if you ask a Tyson Fury fan, they'll make excuses for it. But at the end of the day, Joshua versus Joe Joyce. Yes, please. Yes, please. As I said before, there's multiple scenarios. I think the bookies will probably favour Joe Joyce at this particular moment. Again, a lot of people don't factor in that Joshua, he hung in there. He went 24 rounds over the last two fights with Alexander Usyk. Pound for pound number one by many people's estimations, if you like. So he didn't do himself any kind of injustice or anything like that. You can quite literally put them down as learning fights for Anthony Joshua. But when he's going to be fighting somebody who's big, tall, strong, upright, and there to be hit, Joshua's going to have to let his hands go. But Joshua is faster on his feet. He's got faster hands. He's a great counter puncher as well. But if Joe Joyce can take those punches, if he can, Joshua's in a whole world of trouble. But Joshua is pretty good at the old body shots lately. That's one thing that we can say about Joshua. That is a definite improvement outside of his footwork, is the body shots. Joe Joyce don't like the body shots. We've seen that with Bryant Jennings. He don't like body shots. But anyway, hopefully that if the Fury-Joshua fight doesn't happen, I would like to see Anthony Joshua against Joe Joyce. I would. And credit to Joe Joyce as well, the fact that he's not willing to just sit on his number one WBO mandatory position. He's willing to risk it. Full credit to him. So well done. Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.